So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited to present the Majenta and Bentley data center episode today in digital delivery specifically. We've got David Ayeni here, Head of Partner Experience from Bentley, and my esteemed colleague Simon Ordish, Director at Majenta Solutions. So I thought we'd start off by doing a little bit of introductions, shall we say? Who wants to start off? Who's feeling brave?
I'll go.
Oh,
Yeah. So I'm Simon Ordish. I'm a director at Majenta Solutions. I've been in the business for 25 years, and I'm currently leading a team of digital construction professionals that are focusing on the data center market specifically, as well as other markets, but it's really the data center side of things that we're focusing on for 25. Run out of things to say.
I mean, adding to that, I've been working specifically with Simon the past kind of 6 months to really understand the market and where we can fit ourselves in terms of digital delivery, everything that falls under that BIM umbrella, including 4D and Synchro itself. So I thought, David, it'd be good for you to give a little bit of insight into this and how you've been seeing it work, really.
Okay, so I'll quickly do an intro of Bentley Systems, since
Yep.
we're at the HQ in London, and then I'll introduce myself. So Bentley Systems is a technology company that's all about advancing infrastructure in the built and natural environment. So if we think about our day-to-day life, what we use to improve ourselves and our experience, Bentley is all about doubling down and delivering a better experience for everyone that encounters the infrastructure assets in the day-to-day life. And I look after partner experience, as you mentioned. And the interesting thing about partner experience is I'm trying to bring best of breed partners together to ensure that we're able to deliver outcomes for those infrastructure assets, whether it's a road, whether it's a bridge, whether it's a rail system, whether it's a data center, a nuclear facility. These are all critical infrastructures that enable us to have a better standard of living and provide data sovereignty for us and other countries. So that's really why I enjoy my role, because I work with partners like yourself and others in the technology space to ensure we deliver those outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about infrastructure, I mean, at Majenta alone, during our strategy, we highlighted a few areas for us. So as well as data centers, we've got nuclear, water. What else have we got, Simon?
Yeah, the utility sectors within
Yeah.
that really companion water.
Yeah, and we've really started to have more of a targeted approach, really, because the mission is very much the same, to increase our standard of living and just to improve the infrastructure as a whole, to be honest. But for me and Simon specifically, of course, data centers. And it would be good, really, to go into, like, who the kind of key players are in this industry and why we're seeing such a, what's the word? Influx in capacity, not just in the UK, but also globally.
I think it's an interesting thought, because the data center nuclear nexus, that I like to call it, shows how data centers rely on electricity to produce consumable computing energy or compute. Whereas nuclear facilities take that compute and help them produce the electricity needed by the data centers. So it's kind of like they need each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you're delivering one infrastructure, that infrastructure is supporting the other infrastructure. So that nexus is really something that's becoming more prevalent. And you talk about the influx. So the hyperscalers, the Googles, the Microsofts, the Metas, the Oracles, they really are driving the movement into showing this nexus, because traditionally nuclear has been a slow industry, in my experience. But the need of the data centers, of which the hyperscalers will own about 61% by 2030, means that there's a huge demand in getting it right.
Right. See, it's interesting because when me and Simon are kind of doing our homework, it'd be good to understand who exactly is building the actual data centers themselves. Is it the hyperscalers, or do they contract that work out to tier ones, for example?
It's a really interesting question. Specifically for the data centers, the tier ones will build. They might do a design build, but they will definitely build those data centers, and they would have been contracted by the hyperscalers. But for example, I'm working with one hyperscaler who developed a construction planning software, who are also involved in building their own data centers. So if we think about the largest AI training data center in the world, it's owned by one of the hyperscalers, partnered with OpenAI.
Right.
And that hyperscaler is very much involved in ensuring that that data center is built to the right capacity and on time, more importantly.
Yeah, of course. Just having conversations normally with some of the kind of owner-operators and contractors, sometimes it's difficult to see who's quite in using their initiative to use things like BIM and 4D. And I'm wondering, does that come from the clients or does it come from the contractors as just kind of something that improves efficiency, or is it actually outlined as a requirement by the clients? Do they see the benefit?
It's interesting. So I think as you guys have been in this industry for, I've heard 3 decades now, you've seen that as we've moved along with technology enabling outcomes, yes, BIM was prevalent, but then if you think about visual planning as a concept, so when we define visual planning, it's the way of using visualization to bring all stakeholders in the same page to understand the sequence of, planning, building an infrastructure asset, but then also looking at the logistics, looking at the productivity planning, and then tracking the productivity to enable you to deliver that asset on time within costs. So I think it's just table stakes now. Over 50% of tier 1 contractors now use visual planning or 4D to deliver their projects because, quite frankly, it reduces risks.
Yeah.
Okay? If you plan it virtually first and then you build it physically, you've rehearsed everything digitally, and your outcomes are probably going to be better if you've done that first. So I think, to answer your question specifically, it's not just driven by the owner. The owner wants the tier 1s to deliver their infrastructure, but the tier 1s use the most sophisticated tools to enable their delivery.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, Simon, you probably be able to shed a little bit more light on this as you've got involved with quite a few data center projects now with the likes of Arc Group, KO Data as well. So it'd be good to kind of get your insight in terms of what it's been like consulting for them on the 4D side.
What we tended to find in the past was that 4D visual planning was really used as a bid tool.
Yeah.
So a way of communicating your proposed construction plan effectively to the client. But what we're finding more and more now is that initial 4D model, that 4D plan, is refined and taken forward into the actual delivery of the data center project. And it's used as a central planning tool now. So initially it was really the sort of the site teams and the project managers that benefited, but now we're finding that the client's becoming involved with the kind of planning process, and also it's really sort of improving outcomes for the design team as well. So from something that was initially a bid tool, it's really kind of providing so much more benefit as a central planning tool throughout that whole process.
Yeah.
That's the kind of shift that we've seen in the last 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people miss that mark, to be honest, having planned versus actual. Typically, how long or on what kind of basis do people require an update on the model? Is it on a bi-weekly, monthly? Like, how intricate are the details?
A lot more frequently than you initially expect. So on some of the earlier data center projects we worked on, we were doing updates every 6 weeks.
Wow.
But that quickly changed, and now we're doing them every fortnight. That's fairly typical of the projects that we're working on. So, you're constantly keeping that model updated with the as-built and with design changes for unexpected, events that take place.
Yeah.
And also, what you're able to do is link that with the program, which again is constantly changing. But because of the way that Bentley's Synchro works, you overlay that program, and the 4D plan instantly updates. So. Data centers are, fairly iterative, and complex, MEP heavy, lots of clashes going on between the envelope and the MEP. So it just makes it so ideal for the whole 4D planning and visual planning solution.
I would agree with that. I think, you touched on Synchro a little bit there, and going through that life cycle of the plan to the build to the handover of that asset, Synchro is a great tool. And Bentley also has a platform called the iTwin platform. So what that means is we can federate the model from different model types. When you create the iTwin and you enable that within Synchro, you can now add all sorts of data, operational data, sensor data. So throughout that build, as you're updating information, the twin becomes updated so that by the time you get to commissioning, you have all the inspection test records, you're able to test, commission the data center in this case, and then hand it over to the hyperscaler so they have a digital record, an operational ready twin, which is really important. And another part that's really important, what you mentioned, Simon, was teams doing the mechanical, electrical, and piping work. They can now minimize the clashes that they have in space, because when you're using visual planning, there's also that logistics and spatial awareness that teams have when they're delivering an execution. They're not stepping over each other. They know that this space is where the mechanical teams are going to be working, the electrical teams, and then you're going to bring in, equipment. So that's a really good part of the visual planning that you mentioned, Simon. Just wanted to touch on that.
I also think the iTwin initiative that you're talking about is extremely important, because we talk about digital twins, and I know a lot of construction professionals sometimes get quite overwhelmed with how much software and processes there are out there when it comes to digital. But being able to streamline 4D into that is going to, it's beneficial as far as you can say, to be honest, because even with the operational side, this is something that we mentioned in the white paper, but it improves, just having the digital twin alone improves efficiency by 30%. Just looking at kind of the airing, the cooling air, am I saying that right? And just temperature influxes, like you're able to make predictive adjustments before you even go to operation.
Absolutely. So just double clicking on that a little bit, the first systems that will come online in a data center, the utilities and the cooling systems, right? And then you bring in the racks and you start to, look at the MEP. But as you rightfully say, once you've got that delivery done and you're now into operations, everything you've done before that, enriching that twin, make sure that it was planned, delivered on time, but this is how the systems are going to work operationally. And then you can predict anomalies and detect any sort of failures ahead of time. Having that twin. So absolutely. Having an iTwin is going to be beneficial going forward, I think, to improve the times to deliver these data centers, for sure.
Absolutely. It goes from having a reactive mindset to a proactive mindset, which of course is just going to improve industry standards just by that, really, in itself. I guess, touching on kind of timelines, what are some of the consequences for hyperscalers, contractors to not deliver on time?
I think you really have to think about, like I said earlier, by 2030, 61% of the data centers are going to be owned by these hyperscalers. If they can reduce the amount of time it takes to deliver the data centers, say even if it's a double-digit 10% improvement on schedule, just think about how much money they're going to save and how much gigawatts of power is going to be, enabled by delivering those data centers and the compute, therefore, that we're going to benefit from as society. So I think really it's cost, but also it's time to deliver those data centers to provide that compute. And that's going to be critical for everything that we're doing now. We're streaming this live. We need the compute. You guys deliver a digital business. You need that compute. In our day-to-day lives, we're used to, that compute without even knowing it. Getting those data centers online as early as possible before the schedule is going to be critical. So I think it's going to be a big part of making sure that digital delivery is as effective as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have anything to touch on?
I mean, let's be honest, for these hyperscalers, time is money. Right? I mean, some of the ROIs for the large data centers can be a matter of 8, 9, 10 months. So that shows how much criticality there is in terms of getting that project delivered on time and to budget. But really, it's about time. The sooner they can get that built operational, the better. And one of the things with data center construction is the kind of phased commissioning. It's another area where using visual planning can really help out, because typically that commissioning process is like a critical success factor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with data centers as well, like scalability and like replicability is really important. And to be fair, I know we're seeing it globally, but it'd be good to understand why the UK market is such an attractive market for hyperscalers. We know about 40% of them are based in the US. So I guess geographically, we're brilliant for that. But it'd be good to touch on other points as to why they've chosen to invest specifically in the UK.
I think it's a good point, and at this point, I'm not sitting in the boardroom with these hyperscalers, but just looking at the investment that they're pumping into these data centers, and look at the nuclear energy programs that we have.
Yeah.
As we said at the top of the podcast, nuclear facilities and data centers effectively power each other. So if we are going to be investing in all of this nuclear energy with the SMR programs, Great British Energy Nuclear, investing in, of course, the hyperscalers are going to invest here in the UK because that's smart money, right?
Yeah.
And as you said, time is money. So if they know that they have the best chance of getting those data centers delivered on time here,
Yeah.
why not? And there's a reliable power source to power those data centers. I think it's a smart bet here in the UK to invest, for sure. Microsoft is investing double-digit billions, and I think it's going to be about the same with other hyperscalers who are going to see the opportunity to invest in our country. And I think we're doing a good job in ensuring that our data sovereignty is protected for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Even on the back of the Atlantic Declaration Treaty that we signed in 2023, which specifically is a trade deal between the US and the UK based on technology. I mean, just having access to people like us who are very well known in the industry and have that technical expertise in order to deliver it, I think is another great point, to be fair. I mean, Simon, you've been in digital construction since when exactly?
Since 2012.
Yeah, and you've also worked alongside not just contractors, but clients. You've kind of seen the whole scope in that respect. It'd be good to understand how you've seen kind of digital trends change over the time and how we've grown as a market.
So I think in terms of digital trends, it was the case back in the 2010s when this thing called BIM became a thing. It was really the tool that only the kind of privileged few would use. But now it's become business as usual. So yes, it was a kind of publicly led project, if you like. But now, it's not just prisons, schools, RAF bases that are built using digital technology and BIM. It's everything. We're working on things like theme parks. We're working on big distribution centers for Aldi. And it's really every consultant that's out there now has got access to these tools, and it's just business as usual. So not everyone's using 4D, not everyone's using visual planning, but it's certainly growing as people begin to realize the benefits that a solution like that can bring.
Yeah.
So talking about benefits, so specifically in the UK and specifically on nuclear infrastructure, last year we had the winner of Bentley's Year in Infrastructure Awards, YII.bentley.com, and the company who won actually delivered for Sellafield the reprocessing plant with 500 plus man days saved.
Wow.
And also 80 million pounds on schedule performance related savings, right? So if you think about that, these are hard benefits of using visual planning solutions, specifically Synchro, to deliver these infrastructure assets. And I couldn't talk to you about the data center numbers because you know how touchy these clients are to talk about those use cases, but the Sellafield reprocessing plant that had those savings just gives you an idea of how the power of visual planning can help, reduce the risks, deliver on time. You said time is money, absolutely, and ensure that it's a good tool. I'll give you another statistic or data point. The ITER project, the International Thermonuclear Experimental Research Project, which is all about using fusion experimentally in France, is using Synchro, right? So even down to the tokamak reactor build, these really high fidelity models are being sequenced and planned using Synchro by another Bentley partner to ensure that that facility will be, of course, everyone knows a bit over budget, but will stick to the timeline that has recently been set out. But the main thing is, as you said at the beginning, Simon, just making sure all stakeholders are on the same page and understanding how the build is progressing, which is fantastic, you know. So it's kind of a sector that the Synchro is very strong in, and also within the data center market, we have lots of use cases. You guys are building a lot of data, well, helping your clients build a lot of data centers as well, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to gather data in terms of statistics. And really, we did do it on one project, not specifically for data centers, but for a water treatment site with, was it Southern Trent? Or Southern Water, Galliford Try and Binnies. But small statistics, but I think good in itself anyway. We shaved about 2 weeks off the project timeline, and we saved 25 to 30K on that project alone. And I know it's really hard for us to really capture that data, because I'm not sure how you would go about doing it, to be fair.
To be honest, it's really schedule performance index, cost performance index, and ensuring, you know, risks like lost time incidents. All of these things are captured, and you know, you set those baselines at the start of the project, and you know, project directors know all about it. But being able to sort of talk about, you know, these hyperscaler benefits is difficult, especially now it's so competitive. You know, everyone's trying to keep their secret sauce. But you know, the numbers I gave you earlier are absolutely accurate. And we know that visual planning compared to text is 60,000 times more effective, right? So visual planning is really a powerful way of conveying a story and de-risking any sort of activity in our space, you know?
I really wanted to touch on something you mentioned earlier about nuclear fusion. Of course, traditional methods at the moment, we do nuclear fission, there's a lot of kind of radioactive waste, etc. I know back in 2022, we achieved it, obviously in laboratory environments, but if we were able to do it on a mass scale, what could that mean for the industry in terms of energy efficiency?
So I didn't tell you this at the start of the show, so I'm actually a chartered chemical engineer, and I think nuclear fusion and fusion in general is interesting, and I think that's why the ITER project is also interesting, because it's going to allow us to understand the benefits and how to harness that sort of power. But I think fission right now is the standard, and there's a reason for that. And I think the advances in SMR technology, small modular reactors, is good enough. I think until we have proven the benefits and the ability to harness fusion, I think we should let as you mentioned, the laboratories and the ITERs kind of figure it out, especially the major players like the EU, the USA, Japan, even Russia is involved in that, you know, consortium trying to deliver ITER.
Wow.
Because fusion, as you know, is the kind of process that the sun uses. So it's kind of like you need to be very careful how you add these elements, hydrogen elements together, these, you know, fusion type processes. But fission is well known, well documented.
Yeah, absolutely.
We know how to manage those reactors. So let's stick to what we know.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I thought it would be good to get thoughts anyway. Okay, guys.
I like the way you're not really bothered about what the men look like. It's just the way Priya's going to be interested in her appearance afterwards.
Just going to make sure that my...
Is my grey hair showing through? Didn't have a chance to dye it last night, so...
Part 2, ladies and gents. So I think we're going to touch on a little bit more on the kind of handover phase on data center projects. Now, it is quite costly, and to be able to go back and kind of revise the data, correct it if you have to, it'd be good to understand what that kind of looks like and the repercussions for both the contractor and the client.
Yeah, so part of my role at Bentley also is to co-chair our Digital Delivery Advisory Council, where we have the top E&R companies in that council to give us feedback, because obviously the technology we're delivering isn't just for us, it's for them to deliver better projects. And one of the areas we've really double clicked on is that digital delivery into operational systems. So that handover of information, post-construction commissioning. And what we found is for a typical, call it $1 billion pound data center, the cost of handovers going wrong just in that phase is about 20 million. So if you think about it, if you get it right, you could be saving 20 million in direct costs, but that doesn't even account for, which we haven't yet got metrics on, how that costs in the operational phase.
Yeah.
But just making sure that you've handed over the right amount of data, correct and complete, the rework associated with that has been metriced around 20 million for a $1 billion data center. Now think about that. If we do it right the first time,
Yeah, absolutely.
having the right partners in the ecosystem to deliver validated data at handover continuously through the process, then you don't have the big bang handover or that penalty. So I think it's a really important point to get digital delivery right. What do you think about that, Simon?
So it's something that's really important to us as a business. One of the things that's slightly unusual about Magenta is that we have two subdivisions. We have the side that deals with contractors, main contractors, and also some of the smaller second-tier contractors and consultants. But we also have a more recently formed division that supports the clients. So on that side of the business, what we've been doing is talking to clients, making sure that first of all that they are specifying the right amount of data in the right way. So typically using ISO 19650 contractual documentation, that they're specifying the assets that they're actually going to be using the information from on handover. So rather than specifying, every single, finite detail. For instance, we had an NHS client that was specifying the color of grouting in tiles. And that is just totally unnecessary. That sort of information, specifying that sort of level of detail on a project is going to massively increase the cost of that project. And it just isn't necessary. So if you're a boutique selling Rolexes on Bond Street, just around the corner from here, for instance, that kind of information, grouting color, is very important. But to an NHS, estates team, it really doesn't matter. That's an example of how we're helping clients to specify the right information in the right way, but also, more importantly, making sure that when they receive the handover information, that they have the processes and the systems to take that information and feed it into their CAFM systems, into their digital twin, and make sure that they can reduce the operational cost of running that built asset over the 20, 30, 40, 50 years sometimes of that kind of operational asset's lifetime. And obviously between those two, actually specifying that information and then doing something with the information, what we do is we make sure that during the project, we have consulting engineers that provide coordination and information management services to make sure that data is coming in from the various supply chain. So from the main contractors, MEP, the structural, the architectural, but also some of those more specialist contractors such as sprinkler systems, HVAC, refrigeration. Making sure that the data is coming into the projects in the right way at the right time, so that when that handover occurs, everything is there, ready to go. Because if you come at the end of the project and you find there's gaps or the data's in the wrong format, it's too late to go back and retrace your steps, and the cost of that is massive.
Rework is a killer. The cost of rework on these type of projects is a killer. We talked about productivity of these hyperscalers. They want those delivered on time. I think that's fantastic you guys offer that kind of service, because the ecosystem really needs to understand that a twin with garbage data is a garbage twin, right? So if you can get that data specified quite rightly at the right level of detail by the asset owner, ask the question, why do you need that data? For what operational reason?
Yep.
So that we're not also bloating up the twin, right? You need that information so you can operate and maintain the asset, but also minimize the cost of rework. So I love that. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something that we've offered as a service to all our clients, whether they're contractors or building owners.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very important service, and I think that it's becoming more widely realized that that's something that you must do as a client. I think often the clients have been forgotten in that whole BIM process. This is why BIM was invented, really. It wasn't just to improve the cost of construction or to de-risk construction. It was about reducing the life cycle cost of that asset, which, let's face it, the opportunity to recoup cost savings from a 30, 40, 50-year life cycle of a building, much more beneficial than that kind of 2, 3, 4-year construction phase. So the opportunity out there is massive, and I think people are starting to realize that.
Completely agree.
Touching on that, to be fair, one of the things that we were talking about is, for me, when I do speak to contractors, clients, I'm not too particularly sure that they understand the benefits of something like 4D. And putting the upfront costs, they're always kind of questioning whether that should be consumed by the contractor or the client. And I feel like putting your money where your mouth is and really investing in it in the first place. A lot of people sometimes are quite hesitant, especially if they've not done it before on previous projects. They like to stay where they're comfortable and do what they've been doing for the past 10, 20 years. But it'd be good to understand your guys' opinions when you guys speak to construction professionals on their opinion on that, and really who absorbs the cost, who's kind of responsible for it, and who drives it.
I think one of the difficulties is that it is seen as an upfront cost.
Yeah.
And we all know that construction projects are very susceptible to value engineering. Profit margins are typically quite low. And so it's often a part of the design and engineering process that is value engineered out of the process. But I think that once a client has actually seen how a project has progressed and been de-risked, and the stakeholders have engaged with that project and the benefits that come out of it, once they've experienced that once, then they're going to start to specify it as part of their normal process when they're going out to contract. And part of our role as Majenta is enabling them to take a look and to experience that kind of service without having to necessarily invest in a lot of infrastructure, whether it's software, skills, processes.
Yeah.
But once we've shown that to be successful, then I think that it's going to be embraced and utilised more by the industry as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I think that's correct. I also think that it's really important for everyone in the supply chain to understand that you can improve learning by up to 400% by using visual methods. Okay, so we said it before, and like you just double clicked on, if the owner understands that by using these new methods, not so new, but new methods to them, they can not only de-risk their projects, but improve the predictability of their projects. And as we think about the new workforce entering our industry, you also want to be able to train them. So that 400% becomes important. It also helps to train the owner, and it also allows them to learn from those projects and train. We talk about AI, and train the models that they're going to be using to deliver faster, better projects going forward, in a way that, by the time we get to 2030, these data centers that they're trying to build will have a certainty of outcome as they're delivering it. So I think everything we talk about with digital transformation, AI, it all depends on how well you use the tools.
Absolutely.
But if you can learn from it and you can programatize that, you're only going to benefit yourself and your workforce even more. So I think it's a no-brainer, as you were alluding to. It's kind of like, who's going to pay for it? Well, I think it shouldn't be a zero-sum game. I think it should be a case of, how do we get a better outcome for everyone involved? The integrated product delivery mindset for better digital delivery, for a better total cost of ownership for the asset owner in the end. So I don't think it's should it be done? It's a matter of, when can we just start to, do this more frequently?
Absolutely. Okay, welcome back. In the previous kind of part, we talked a little bit about handovers. We also talked about kind of the benefits, who absorbs costs when it comes to 4D, and I really wanted to talk about how we demonstrate the benefits of 4D, specifically on projects like data centers, where we're signed under NDAs and we can't necessarily talk about the intricate details and the logistics. So it'd be good to understand how we're capable of doing that in that respect, in terms of statistics and maybe synergy between other sectors. So it'd be good to hear.
Yeah, I think a good way to probably look at it is the Construction Industry Institute already has published ROI on using methods like advanced work packaging. And one of the good things about Synchro is, from a construction visual planning standpoint, you can deliver the path of construction where all stakeholders, the owner, the constructor, the design teams, they're all on the same page around what we're gonna construct first. So where's the path of that construction? And breaking things down into work areas, multidisciplinary work areas, and being able to sort of get everyone aligned on that path of construction and not deviate from it, has shown via CII double-digit productivity gains. And I think once owners understand and appreciate that, and they want to demonstrate that to other peers in the industry and allow us to publish white papers, I think that speaks for itself. I think you can get double-digit savings on just being able to use these visual planning tools, best in class like Synchro, with the standards. I think it should be a no-brainer. But until then, it's going to be difficult. I think.
So, yeah.
I got an idea. You could run a series of podcasts or webcasts.
Oh no! No way.
Much like we're doing today. And that might have an effect. We can get the message across that way.
Yeah,
using,
absolutely,
more
absolutely.
innovative ways.
It's genius.
I mean, even on meetings ourselves, because obviously me and Simon do them together, teamwork. Yeah. A lot of the times we're finding that we're educating a lot of the kind of construction professionals around 4D and BIM, and sometimes it is kind of difficult to demonstrate it just because we're just not allowed to talk about some of the exciting projects that we're on at the moment. But I mean, Simon, you do a really good job of doing it, and it'd be good to tell the people exactly how you go about it.
Data security. This gives me a chance to talk about Magenta and our approach to IT and data security and that sort of thing. But our background is in automotive. Back 30 years ago, it was really the automotive sector that was really pioneering the use of 3D design and development technology, and we supported Ford Motor Company actually in rolling out that solution to their supply chain in Northern Europe. So we used to provide support and training and the hardware and the software to all those organizations that were really sort of like delving into the 3D world and all the management of information, digital information that goes around that. And we developed a piece of technology, our own IP, called MX, Magenta Exchange. Yeah. That's a tool, a cloud-based tool for transferring data with a really detailed and robust audit trail. And it's used by many of the automotive AMs out there at the moment for moving that data around. But managing that sensitive data, the concept designs of an automotive company, that then takes us forward to where we are now when we're managing data for the Ministry of Justice, for instance. Prison CCTV systems, prison security systems. A lot of our stuff have to be security cleared, and it's really important to us to have not only the systems in place to prevent that data loss, but also the integrity and the trust that our customers bestow upon us. So, if a data center says, you can't talk about this project, it's under NDA, then we cannot talk about it. But what we can do is, as you alluded to earlier, we can use synergies in different industries and just, not name drop, but just talk about them more generally. And that's what we have to do. So it's not easy, but that's kind of how we get around things.
That's reverse psychology, that is really.
No, I love that. And I also think the part you talk about data security, we know construction is highly fragmented in the infrastructure sector, but love the fact you talked about it in the way you did, because that's the way we look at it. All these startups popping up, technology startups specifically. And one thing that is also very important to us is security of our customers' data. So when we do partner, we want to make sure whoever we're partnering with, from a services, from a technology, from a corporate partnership, it's not just adding another logo to say, this is part of our ecosystem. They have to have the same value. So we are really looking at making sure that data, whenever we work as an ecosystem, because it's a multi-vendor ecosystem, it's all about securities. And I completely agree with you, because it's all about data security, data sovereignty, and that's what data centers are going to bring all of us together. And if you think about the data center, back to the beginning, powering the nuclear facilities and making sure the temperatures, the pressures, the neutron fluxes, everything about that is aligned and to the set points that they need to be. And on the other side, the nuclear facilities powering the data center, you need to make sure security is at the heart of everything. Otherwise, things could go wrong. So I love that point.
I mean, I really want to touch on that in terms of the bad consequences that can come from not having the correct data and operational kind of efficiency. I mean, for example, with Grenfell, that's why we've got the Building Safety Act now and the kind of golden thread of information. But it took something so drastic for us to incorporate new styles of working, new processes, etc. But are there any instances, they might be theoretical, they might be real, where you've seen similar situations within the realm of kind of data centers and nuclear?
No.
Thank God.
No,
That's great.
these are highly regulated, critical infrastructure. So, for one, if they did happen, I'm not sure they'll be publicized. But two, I know the amount, as I mentioned before, as a chemical engineer, I've been in these control rooms. I've been part of designing these facilities. There's redundancies in them for reasons as well. Not just the redundancy in the circuit boards, but redundancy in security systems, redundancy in the data centers themselves. So no, I haven't seen or heard of such failings, thankfully.
Okay. Theoretically, though,
Let's not theorize.
I think you see them on a smaller scale. So, I mean, on some of the clash detection services that we provide, you'll federate the various models from structural, from MEP, from civils, from architecture, and you will run the clashes. And you'll literally come up with tens of thousands of clashes.
yeah.
Some of those will be, priority 3s or whatever, but a large majority will be priority 1s, and that it's quite surprising when you see how many there are, even today.
Yeah.
Now that we're this far down the whole sort of digital construction life cycle, if you like, still thousands of clashes occurring between, the dense MEP and the envelope work delivery package. It's incredible, really.
Yeah.
And actually managing to be able to spot those before it gets to sort of boots on the ground really reminds me of, again, going back to our sort of automotive roots. In automotive, it wasn't just about creating that 3D model so you could come up with a better design. It was what you could do with that 3D model further down the development manufacturing process. So it was about simulating the FEA analysis. It was about simulating how you would the ergonomical workstations of people putting these parts together. It was about simulating the conveyor lines and the actual robotic processes. And that's similar to construction now, is that we're able to do so much more. Now we have this 3D model, such as 4D planning or visual planning. So those sorts of, I've sort of lost the track of where I started this conversation.
No, that's all right.
But I think
You were talking about clashing and also, that analogy
it's
to
like,
security.
these are the things you can do. Now you've got that model. Things like clash detection, it's so important. Just think, you used to turn up to a construction site, and it's a bit of probably people will not like this analogy, but literally a spade and a 2D drawings rolled up underneath your arm and get there and start just digging away. And nowadays we can do it all before it's real.
Yeah.
About simulating
build
it
it
before we
virtually.
get to site. And
Yeah. It's interesting that you mention it, because even with the clash detection that we provide on its own, when we've done, I'm not going to mention the specific customer, but when we've done a 4D plan for a customer and, they came back to us and was like, oh, the cladding's going up before the car park's done. Just being able to look at the program and identify that the program itself is wrong.
that was actually an interesting one, because that particular client was in a design team meeting,
Yeah.
and they rang us to say that we'd got our 4D plan wrong.
Yeah.
And actually, we stuck to our guns and said, no, it's your program.
Yeah.
This is reflecting your actual program. And they were like,
Oh,
wow,
wow.
our program's wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were putting the cladding up before they had any hard standings to get that cladding machinery into place.
Yeah, and exactly. And it goes back to that point of, had they gone onto site, started building, the rework, the cost, the resource, it's just it's a domino effect, isn't it? And to be able to stop it, it's going to take a lot of manpower. So,
Can I ask a question? What do you guys use today for that, creating that federated model? So 3D models, Tekla, Revit, etc.
So we use Solibri or typically Navis.
Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
No, but I think that's okay. You can use whatever you want. But I think the most important part of our technology stack is the iTwin. So being able to federate any 3D type native file into one model means that you understand those clashes before they happen, as you're doing, but you can also then enrich that twin through the life cycle. So any other changes that happen in the 3D native, the twin understands that changes, alerts whoever needs to be alerted, but also synchronize that with the schedule Also synchronize that with resources, quantities, and make sure that as you go through that life cycle, you're enriching the twin so you have a real-time almost understanding of the construction of the asset as it's being built out. So yeah, today you're using that, but I think tomorrow you should
Sounds like you're alluding to the future of the Bentley solution.
Yeah,
Would I be
is
correct
that
there?
an RIA kind of
It's
integrated
to-
technology
today.
based?
The
Oh,
iTwin
It's
is
not the
here.
future, it's today.
It's today.
the future is today, guys.
Today. Today.
That's
That's the
interesting.
beauty of the iTwin, and I think it's a good opportunity for us to expose that to your teams a little bit more, because it means that now teams aren't working in the silo of this structural or this sort of design. It's kind of multidisciplinary review of the twin, and you can bring in multiple eye models into that iTwin so that you can understand what the whole looks like from, even if they're using multiple 3D type models. Absolutely. Today.
Because what would be really helpful to us is if we're running a 4D planning sequence, but if we could kind of automate the clash detection process within that same environment, that would be
Absolutely.
really useful.
Imagine. Just imagine. The future today.
Just imagine.
Yeah, so I guess it'd be really good to understand how we see 4D evolving, especially with complex projects such as data centers. We're aware that things such as 5D, 6D, probably up to 10D exist, but it'd be good to get a little bit more understanding what those extra dimensions really are.
It's a really good point and good segue. So being able to simplify and allow anyone to be a 4D planner. Just think about it. Reducing that barrier to entry where you don't have to be a skilled 4D planner to create a 4D schedule. Imagine in natural language, you could tell the machine, here is my 3D model. Here's the current plan. Show me how feasible it is going to be. Just think about the possibilities if that was to happen. However, your question about 5D, 6D. So 5D brings a dimension of cost to 4D. Once you can get to a federated 3D model in the iTwin, and you add that dimension of time, which is a project schedule, you understand the space, and then you understand the cost and the quantities, you get to 5D. Once you can get to 5D, now you understand the sustainability, the carbon associated with the objects in your model, you get to 6D. Then XD, you could get to 70, 80. So to your point, I think the main thing we talked about data and the importance of quality data. As long as you have quality data that's coming into the systems, you can trust that the 5D, the 6D is accurate enough to use.
Yeah.
And as you get to those different dimensions and you're already using visual planning tools, I think the sky is the limit, to be honest. And we're seeing customers already using our systems to go from visual planning to other dimensions in industrial buildings such as data centers. So gigafactories, for example, leveraging the power of that data to get to the XDs.
Yeah. I mean, Simon, it would be good to get your perspective, having delivered 4D for some time now, and obviously having good processes and just practices in place to be able to deliver it in such a good kind of turnaround time. Looking at the market and the kind of clients and contractors you work with, do you think there's quite a bit of scope to start leveling up to your kind of 5D, 6D? I mean, right now, sustainability is such a massive topic here in the UK and getting to net zero. Do you see 6D really kind of pushing that forward? And
I think we're, to be honest, I think we're just starting to get there. I think it has taken quite some time to get traction from 3D to 4D. 5D is now, I think particularly, you talk to QSs, they're talking about 5D. 6D, 7D. Most organizations that we work with have got a sustainability department, which is quite a new area of the business, but I don't see them talking in that same sort of language. So I don't see them talking about 6D. I don't think they really understand what that is.
yeah,
So it's up to, teams like us to try and get that message out there. But even though they might not be using the words 6D, they are
still doing
they
it
are
in
still
one way or
doing
another.
that, that carbon capture,
Yeah.
that carbon calculation.
I think as an industry, it's good to outline kind of terms that make sense to all of us, which again goes back to visual planning, because once you see something visually, everyone's pretty much on the same page. But when we talk about kind of digital delivery in construction and what that really means, not everyone has the same kind of, base level of understanding, and it means different things to different people. But if I was to ask you guys what it meant to you in terms of digital delivery, what would you say it is?
To simplify, I would just say digital delivery is that process of getting from your 1D drawings to 2D drawings, 3D models, 4D, and ensuring that the construction process is digitalized, bringing in other data sources, and then handed over to the asset owner for an operational readiness. That is digital delivery. It's not just digital project delivery, it's digital delivery in the sense that you're now able to hand that digital model over to the asset owner, and they trust the provenance. They trust that the data is validated. Everything we've all discussed today, kind of like trying to wrap it up, is all about getting to digital delivery.
Yeah.
That's how I would encapsulate it.
Nice, nice. Simon, any other thoughts on top of that? Summarised pretty well.
I guess for me, it's about the digital delivery. I think has to be driven by the client, and it does frustrate me that there isn't more of a grasp of an understanding of digital delivery within the client space. There are some that are doing it really well, but I do believe that they really have to understand the benefits that it can provide them, and start to contractually, everyone's asking for 3D in most cases. So some like FIS, FSI, prison, fire security stuff, so 2D, but generally everyone's asking for 3D. It's about time they started asking for more than that. So specifying 4D, for instance, in the contract. I know some large projects are doing that, but it needs to become more sort of wholesale. And just understanding the benefits that having that, that not just the 3D model, but that rich asset information can really provide to them during the running of that building for the next 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah, I think it's really a key point actually, because I feel like with kind of technology at its prime at the moment, and seeing the divide between the public sector work and the private sector and who's really adopting digital processes and systems, I think that gap might widen if people don't have a very proactive attitude towards it. If you're someone that's got to be told you have to do it, likelihood is like you'll never really adopt it and use it to the best of its ability, really, and you're going to kind of get left behind in the game, because some people are going to move forward drastically and some people are really going to be left in the Victorian times. Do you guys think that's fair to say?
I think the best way I can sum it up is, if you look in social media and everyone's saying, AI isn't going to take your job, but it's the person using AI that's going to take your job. Similar to these asset owners, your competition isn't going to stay and wait for the digital processes to catch up. They are investing and using these digital technologies to get better. And if you don't invest and use digital delivery and mandate it, like you said, as a standard, your competitors are going to take it because they're leveraging these technologies. So I think that's the best way that I can sum it up.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder if it's kind of like a fear-based approach just because it's new to people and they don't understand how it's going to work out, or whether it's just kind of more of a, this might be harsh, but a lazier kind of mindset, just like unwilling and being too comfortable in the practices that they already have. Who do you reckon the government or like industry boards are going to be a driving factor to making sure that the industry standards are implemented fairly and quite broadly across not just...
I have a strong feeling about this. What do you think?
I was just sitting here thinking I don't really have a view on it, to be honest. So with the way that the government rolls these things out, I don't think they always do it in the best way. For instance, the Gateway 2 side of things, following Grenfell, the fiasco that there is in terms of getting projects through planning at the moment, and the massive hold-up there is. There's real pent-up demand for buildings, but they cannot come to fruition because of that planning, and I don't think it's been rolled out properly. So I'm a bit skeptical about that. So let David talk about it.
I'm quite opinionated in this. I think the market will always pay your worth. I think the market will always level set. So I think irrespective of what the government does, I agree with you. I don't think anyone is waiting for the government or to mandate. Look at PAS 1192. That was a good way of, making sure that we had good ways of naming things, numbering things. Fine, great. But even today, how has that worked out? But in the end, if the market is demanding for advancement in digital technologies. If you don't do it, it's very simple. You're going to get left behind. So the market has got a way of correcting itself. The market will pay you what you're worth and will give you the answer. So I think if you don't do it, guess what? Your competitor is going to do it.
Yeah.
So
Someone
I think
will.
the market, that's why I love entrepreneurship. I love capitalism. And I think that it's survival of the fittest, you know? If you're not ready and able to get in the game the proper way, you're going to get your backside handed to you, to be honest. So.
It's a fair way to put it. I do agree as well, to be fair. Right. How did we want to wrap this up is the question. Or unless there's any other points we think are worthwhile talking about.
I just want to say I want to thank you guys for allowing me to partake in your podcast, and it's been fun.
No, well, we want to say thank you for even hosting us here at the Bentley office. It's
which is amazing, by the way. If you've never been here, you need to try and get a
extraordinary.
reason to come.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, and thank you for agreeing to do it with us. I'm really just driving this initiative forward and being so proactive.
No worries. I think the industry, like I said, the market will definitely give you your level, and I think we just want to advance infrastructure in the right way for the natural and built environment, and that's our mission.
Can I call myself the host?
Yeah.
Listen, this is time to give yourself a pay rise. I'll do it now.
So, guys.
Don't give her ideas.
We'll be talking after this, not joking. So, guys, I've been your host, Priya Flora, and today we've had David Ayeni and Simon Ordish with us. So I want to thank you first and foremost for taking the time, really setting it up. I can't believe we've manifested this into actual reality, but here we are. So yeah, guys, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the sector and, you know, just the updates around Bentley and Majenta itself, then please feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. We post a lot of exciting stuff. You'll have to find out for yourselves, though. So thanks again for watching, and signing off.
That's all right.
Hey, that was so good.
Thanks, guys. That was fun.
Thanks,
Cool.
David.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
that.
much.